2 years ago to join Engage Park, and since then he has helped launch platform, scaling it, and building a confident tech team. Along the way, he's learned that growing a startup is all about being stubborn, failing, and learning a lot. Let's welcome Murat. Yay!
Hi Paula, thanks for having me.
For our next speaker, he is the CEO of loansolutions.ph, the biggest and fastest growing online loan brokerage platform in the Philippines. In recent years, he's built and led ClickLabs Ventures and its portfolio of companies and investments to more than 100 employees across 3 countries. Let's welcome Jean-Patrick Bisson.
Thank you.
Hello everybody.
Hi.
Give yourselves a big round of applause.
Yeah, so how did you guys end up in the tech for startups? Like, what's the story behind what was your education and why did you grow like an interest in having startups or being in the tech industry?
I basically had a straightforward IT background. Ended up in a company in Berlin in a startup that then got simply bought by Oracle, which is a huge company in tech, and they basically swallowed us. And after a while, it was so horrible that I immediately left and went soul searching in New Zealand, and then Googled for a social job, and then found the Philippines and found Engage Park here. I came here, and then became first just a lead, a tech lead, and then CTO here at Engage Park in Cebu.
Sure. So basically for me, I think the most, the appeal for tech, I'm not a tech guy. I graduated with a marketing background. How many of you guys are actually developers here? Okay, so not a lot of you. Alright, so I was in the same shoes as you. I think, the appeal for me for tech was the scalability of it and the ability to touch a lot of people from one location. I think, tech brings that kind of opportunity. And so I started wanting to be a lifestyle entrepreneur at the beginning. So basically make money while I was traveling. So Cebu is kind of a destination for startup entrepreneurs. Are any of you guys, do you consider yourself startup entrepreneurs? Yeah? Okay, so a couple of you guys. So you travel and then at the same time you make money and then you go into these tech hubs to do that. So that was my goal at the beginning. After a while, I met my girlfriend in Brazil and I lived there on the beach for about a year. Then we moved to Portugal, and after that our business grew and we wanted to find some staff, so we decided between India and the Philippines. And basically we looked at India and I asked a lot of questions to a lot of people. And basically you really need to be sharp there if you're going to do business. Like you need to know the landscape, etc. And we looked at the Philippines. We had the idea of basically opening our office on the beach and making it like a little Googleplex.
Yeah.
So we actually went to Cebu first, but after that we went to Dumaguete and we looked at buying an abandoned resort to turn it into like a little Googleplex. And my partners felt it was crazy. And then after that we went to Bacolod.
Yeah.
And in Bacolod we were like, we're really far and there was no tech scene whatsoever. And basically we said, Cebu was pretty good. And we decided to try to set up in Mactan. And we looked at houses there to buy to actually set up our office. But most employees were like, I don't think I would travel there. So basically we ended up, setting up, renting a house in Cebu. And yeah, and then the rest is the story afterwards.
So since you moved to Cebu, what has been the challenges like for each of your companies? What has been difficult for you to deal with like in Cebu?
One of the challenges here is that, at least from a tech perspective, that many companies here do outsourcing and do small projects. So when you look at engineers here, they often think of engineering as building something small and doing their day, and then that's it, and then they go home. And I sometimes miss the excitement, and there are of course exceptions, but generally this is something that has been challenging for me to get out of people, to tell them, hey, you're engineers, you're there to build awesome things that can change the world, and then you, like software, you can build everything you want in software. No, this is what you're supposed to be dreaming about, and these dreams I would like to see a bit more kindled, and yeah, this is one of the challenges that I see.
I mean, aside from the challenges of, I don't like the mic.
Okay.
But aside from the challenges of running a business anywhere, I think the challenge from Cebu is that it can be quite isolating in terms of, you know, what new technologies are out there, what's happening in the bigger tech hubs. So we've been here for about 6 years, so I think I get a bit of my fix when I go to conferences internationally, or we have an office in Manila, so there's a little bit more of a startup scene there. So for quite some time it felt isolating, but I think, you know, there's quite a good group of startups like that. What's been really challenging for us, since none of the founders of my original company were tech guys, was to build a solid tech team with like solid engineering. What happens is that a lot of companies need to bring in guys like him that have more of the, no, but it's true, more of the architectural sort of background for scale. It's just that the training is not there yet. Obviously, the new generation of tech is at that point, but it wasn't when we moved here. That was a huge challenge.
I guess I need a mic because my voice is really tiny, so if I don't use it, you can't hear me. One of the things that has been missing when I came here or was smaller was generally community events. No? Like just dev meetups was not so much. Events like this one, not so much. This is all now growing. This has been a challenge, and apparently is being addressed. No? So thank you for that. But this is something. And one thing that maybe from my point of view is growing a bit, and I'm trying to help this is like a tech leadership meetup that we are doing. If anybody's interested in that, just approach me or Mark from Cashiering or other people. Yeah, from that perspective, we are trying to fill this gap too.
Apart from like missing out on the tech with the architectural background, what other areas do you think that Cebu has to improve to really like be there for the startup?
There's so with one of our startups, Loan Solutions, we got funded by Globe, but we needed to go to Manila to do the pitching, etc. So the VC presence in Cebu is not really there. So there's not a lot of funding for startups, and the families that have a lot of money don't understand the scalability of it or like valuations, etc. So they'll give you $10,000 and want like 40% of your company. And a lot of people take that money in Cebu because they don't have the education of understanding term sheets or understanding any of these things. So there's a lot of predatory investing, I guess, that happens when you don't have that ecosystem built around it. So there's a lot more, even if it's small, there's a lot more startups than VC capital. So everybody's kind of fighting for not a lot of money that's being invested. So that's another problem.
This doesn't just go for VC capital, it's also simply for sales, for example. Ravi, our CEO, is spending a lot of time in Manila simply because all the headquarters are there. This is something that we can't really change easily, unless they open satellite offices here with decision makers here. This is simply maybe a disadvantage of Cebu in that sense that we here can't just.
Yeah. So now that you're with your companies, like what has been like major or like big mistakes that you have done that you want people to avoid? So when they have like their startups, they don't fall into the same mistake as you do.
Um, yeah, so I think the biggest problem for startups is people build solutions that are looking for problems instead of the other way around, starting from a problem and working backwards. That's a huge issue that a lot of startups do, and a lot of startups fail because of that. They kind of fall in love with their solution, and then they try to see if there's a business model that's going to sustain it. So that's a huge issue in every country, but definitely my biggest take. And also, especially if you're going to do business locally here, go to where the money is, because it's quite lopsided where the money is. So that's something we've learned the hard way with doing local business. You can build something that is really good, but are people willing to pay for it is another thing. So that's kind of a huge learning.
Generally, focus is something that we have to learn. We try to do too many things at once, and this never works. And there's no in your mind, this, okay, this makes perfect sense. And if I'm telling you this now, and you haven't been through this experience, maybe then you'll say, yes, this makes sense. But it's a really hard thing to actually not fall into this trap and figure out when you're spreading too far. And on a personal level, like as being or evolving into leadership role, one big learning for me has been like how much I'm projecting basically my mood or my style on everybody else. This wasn't so clear to me before, and this was a big learning that I basically need to become a better human being in a sense, much more controlled, much more positive, because whenever I'm in a bad mood, then everybody else just drags everybody down. It's confusing.
So we're speaking about mood. So what drives you to still continue and push your company further? So what's this behind the push for you to grow more or to expand, to have bigger reach? Especially for you, JP, you already have 3 countries. So what was the primary force or the drive behind it?
Well, I think at the core, you can't help it. But with a lot of people, that are entrepreneurs, I think that'll resonate to you guys. You want to build things, and you want to do it on your own terms. You want to do it, you want to create freedom for yourself. The kind of funny thing is the bigger your company gets, the less freedom you have. But that's the initial goal. Because I had a lot more freedom when I was on my computer and backpacking and making really good money. But at one point, I mean, if you're doing businesses that have an impact that's positive, it's to see that impact grow, because you like reaching a lot of people and changing people's lives in a certain sense. So that's really motivating. So that's another takeaway from that is do business for the right reasons. We've done a lot of businesses that were just to make money. They've made a lot of money. It's not very fulfilling. But sometimes you do businesses that might make a little bit less money, but it's sort of like what you dedicate yourself to day in, day out. So it has to be meaningful. So I think that's a huge takeaway. Meaning
is in the end exactly why I came here to Cebu, because I like what Engaged Park does. And it's nice if it's doing that with 100 people, and then I'd really like to see it do it with tens of thousands and 100,000 people, and there is the growth. You just want to do more of the same, or better and more.
Yeah. So what are the advice that you can give for people who want to start growing their startup, or if they want to start having their own business? What's an advice that you can give?
Sure. Well, it depends which stage you're at. Different stages. I mean, we had to learn really fast to scale from no employees to 10 employees to 20 all the way to 100, and scale back in some businesses because of cash constraints and different things. So at different stages of a company, there's different things. I think at the beginning you need to be scrappy as hell, and you need to the Jason Siegel, the guy from Basecamp, he says MVP is not minimum viable product, it's minimum viable profit. Because a lot of people are just building things, but like the revenue models, they don't think about them fast enough. So that's actually a big takeaway at the beginning. But then after that, when you get to a little bit bigger, you need some form of structure. So we got too big too fast with no formal structure. I mean, you have HR, you have finance because you need it. But after that, like, you do quarterly meetings? Do you do 360 reviews with employees? Do you have KPIs? Do you have meetings to talk about your KPIs, discrepancies of the KPIs? I mean, there's a lot to take away from, you know, that stage of the business, and that's where I feel there's the least amount of education, because a lot of the startup books, whatever, are all about starting and then the rah-rah mindset, like the Gary Vaynerchuks and whatever. But like, past that, when you have actually a working business and you want to scale it, what do you do, right? So to a lot of people, I've been recommending the book Traction. So I get really like obnoxious about recommending this book to people that have businesses, because I think it brings that kind of structure that when you're at a certain size, let's say past 10 employees or whatever, you need something like that. So that's one of my biggest takeaways. And then when you get bigger, it's, not to get too distracted by shiny stuff, because you can overextend yourself both financially and mindset, because as an entrepreneur, you kind of see everything very open and everything is possible, but then everybody doing the execution, to switch, there's a lot of cost for people to switch tasks during the day. So if you can keep everybody really focused, and if you could have everybody focus on their own metric, and improving, like, all-encompassing one metric, in my experience, they become the most productive. So, yeah, different challenges at different stages.
For you, Murat, since you took up the leadership role, what has been like your way of growing the company?
It's basically exactly what JP just said. It's establishing systems. One thing, really important thing, is to realize that the difference between an entrepreneurial mindset and somebody that simply wants to do a good job, and you're supposed to be there to help them do that. And that's, you need to put up those structures like 360 degrees and so on. There's a lot of trying and failing in the end and communicating. I think this is simply the biggest thing, setting up systems that work so that you can step out more and more out of the daily stuff.
Since both of your companies have been around in Cebu for a while, how has it been like maneuvering through the tech world?
What do you mean?
Like, so how do you adapt to like the changing environment, or has it changed in Cebu?
You've been here for 3 years, right? Yeah, so we've been here for 6 years. I think the landscape has changed to the point where it's a little bit more competitive. And the first business that we came here to start was called OfferChat, which the idea was to have sort of like the Odesk of outsourced customer service. And so because of that, we started a website called Cebu Jobs, so that we could have like first dibs on the talent in Cebu. And I guess that came true. It's become a lot more competitive to hire talent, and it's only going to get more competitive. And I don't think the schools are good enough yet to produce good, talented tech graduates. So people are all going. So a lot of companies are reluctant to hire people fresh out of school. There's not that many people left after that have experience. So really, if you're a developer in Cebu, not only can you freelance, but you can pretty much ask for really big salaries from startups. So I was in a conference in Lisbon, and actually developers there earn less than here, which to me was super surprising. Yeah. So it's just more competitive now.
How has it been like to maneuver in each part to really like find the right customers and really like reaching your goals?
Two sides. So one is the growing the company, and there's maybe comes exactly this gap in the education system. Maybe closing this one has been a challenge. The other one is for finding customers. There it was about focus. I guess we have learned to focus more on the local market here, because we can actually go to the companies and visit around. It's much easier to get customers when you talk to people and grow your network there, versus trying to, I don't know, close customers in South America or so. It's just the human factor is missing. So this is something that we learned to do that.
So do you think there's a better market within Cebu, or should people starting out their business just focus more out of Cebu? So what do you think?
So it's a pretty open-ended question. Yeah, I mean it's depends what people do. I mean, do you guys have businesses focused on the local market? Raise your hand if you do. Not you do. Yeah, so you're not lifting your hand. You don't want to be that guy. Yeah, so I think so, sort of like even like so my friends there are building a huge virtual world for kids, and they're gonna be launching. I mean, a smart way to do it is to launch in a smaller market so that you can make mistakes, and those mistakes don't hurt you as much, because it costs a lot more to go broader. And then if you're gonna make mistakes, I guess there's a lot of people that say fail fast, but you can fail fast locally, and it's a lot cheaper. A lot of reasons why we came obviously to the Philippines was to pay less for staff, and then just the whole ecosystem around it, because we could make business mistakes that wouldn't be as costly. So limit your downside, I guess, if you're gonna do business locally. A lot of businesses, obviously, like this guy's doing a BPO. You can't do BPO here servicing the local market. It's gonna be very difficult. So there's a lot of business models that don't lend themselves to that. But if you can, then you should start as small as you can. So.
You might also get more leeway in a sense. Like one thing we experience, which is quite fun, that when we talk to customers, and we are a global platform now, so everywhere it says global, and then at some point it comes out, hey, we are in Cebu, or you're in Cebu too, hey, that's fun. Wow, you're building this actually in Cebu, and this gives you credit in a sense, and so you can do this experimenting maybe, and this helps you, just get the first few failures, the first few customers. It's really good if you have them locally, because then you have the short connection. There is immediately a common ground in a sense. So this is great.
But also, if you could disprove an idea that's actually valuable, but that local people are not willing to pay for, but if you would sell it to the States, people are more than willing to pay for it. So you might let go of ideas that are actually viable. So it really, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't look at it in this kind of dichotomy. You have to really understand your business model and target demographics, and then start as small as you can, so that you don't spend too much money on mistakes. So don't do like a TV spot in the beginning because you have the best idea. It's probably the worst medium right now to do advertising. I mean, but just like doing it, they say growth hacking and all that kind of stuff. Just do it cheap. Yeah.
So aside from doing it cheap, like, how do you think we should start in, like, if you want to be in this industry, what's the first step for them? Since you weren't really, like, when you started, it was not really focused on tech, so what do you think is like the best if they want to be part of the industry?
And there's a lot of frameworks actually to start from nothing, right? Have you guys heard of the Lean Startup Machine? Anybody here? Yeah? So it's kind of like a whole framework that you go from problem, proving or disproving the idea, and you iterate on it through getting out of the building, is what they call it, interviewing people, your target demographic, and then you need a certain threshold of people actually willing to spend money or whatever, do a certain action that sort of validates your idea. and then you can iterate really quickly towards a good business model. So if you guys are starting from nothing, that is the best way to ensure success. But obviously, if you build like apps, for social promotion, etc., or a virtual world, then you're kind of like going big or going home, and then you're swinging for the fences and you hope it works. So it's two different models.
In the end, I can confirm that it's all about keeping it simple. Many people try to have a big dream and then think that their budget and their costs and all this stuff need to follow along. And that's not true. First, you need to realize if your dream actually makes any sense to anybody else.
Yeah.
When you know that, then you can punch in all the money.
Yeah, and then just one more thing. If you're gonna do it, before you start hiring staff full time, outsource as much as possible.
Or do it yourself.
Or do it. Well, I mean, if you're a coder, you can do it yourself. If you're not, you don't have that luxury. But don't hire too fast, because then you have, because you don't understand the needs of the business. So sometimes you have, you're developing, and then after that, it's all developed, and it's only sustenance cost, and then it becomes a marketing game. But then you have these devs on full time, and then if you're like me, then you kind of try to find work for them instead of like being a hard ass and firing them, right? So then you start inventing projects, and that is the biggest downfall of startups, because then you get distracted, etc. So to go the leanest way possible is to outsource. You feel like you're paying more per hour when you do the computation, but the benefit of being able to turn on and turn off staff is amazing. And we actually outsource a lot more now that are not sort of the core competencies of the company. And we outsource all our development in Armenia, and they're just, yeah. I mean, there's just different things, and then we outsource some stuff to Cebu, even to Manila. And I think that's, leveraging tools, leveraging these kinds of things is really important when you're starting out.
One other pitfall that in that area, when you hire, make really sure that you're okay with that person. Like when you have a gut feeling, maybe not sure, then that's a no. Then just there's a door, walk that person out, shake hands, bye. We did that mistake of hiring people that we were not sure about, and this never turned out well. Huge mistake, because when you think you need to hire, so we have only those few applicants, this is the best one, let's take him or her, and then this just doesn't, then that's horrible. If you spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, emotional energy, on just figuring out what to do with that person that is just not a good fit, terrible.
One more thing. So if you guys have people that you're thinking of maybe letting go and you're not sure, the sort of like, it's a very convoluted, heavy word. Am I gonna fire this person? The way I choose to look at it is, let's say that position that this person is in would be vacant. Would I hire that person for it? Were that person not working for me right now, would that be the person I would hire for that job? If the answer is no, or there's hesitation, that gives you a very good indication. And it takes all the firing heaviness away from that kind of question. That really sort of puts it out there. Little mind hack, I guess.
So how complicated was it to really come up with a solid team? I mean, like in Cebu, is it easy to find a good team, or it's also a struggle?
It's always a struggle.
Yep.
It's true.
So what do you think are the benefits of having your startup here in Cebu?
Costs.
Yeah, so it's cost. And any other strand?
Come on, we do have to be serious. One thing that we do is like a fellowship model where we invite people from abroad to come here for half a year. And it is nice when you can tell, hey, just Google Visayas, Google Cebu, and look at the pictures and marketing now.
Yeah, so it's easy to sell because Cebu is a nice island.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can build that. Yeah, I mean, the infrastructure is getting better, which is really cool, and then the quality of life is very good. But business-wise, I mean, you can make mistakes that don't cost you as much. You don't lose the house, which is a big deal.
So what do you think are the opportunities that are still here in Cebu and it's waiting to be tapped, or the areas where for improvements?
Everything. Go ahead. I mean, so a lot of people, right? Plastic, there's a pollution. It's a big area for improvement. Like core infrastructure. So a friend of mine, maybe you know him, Murat. He decided to take on the big telcos and build his own telco, basically, like B2B internet. He's laying out fiber. So really, at the core infrastructure level, there's a lot to be done. If you want to, and just up the value chain, there's things to do everywhere. But if you want to just ask the big companies what their problems are and what they're not solving, and then just work backwards from that. Because oftentimes they're looking for solutions that are not there. Another thing is look at what's successful outside Cebu, outside the Philippines. That just makes too much sense to not exist here, and it'll probably end up happening here, and maybe you're that person to make that happen, right? So it's kind of like having a crystal ball right now. Education. Improve education. My whisperer.
I mean, it's not something immediately where you can, like, okay, there is a room doing startups and education in China there, and they have NGOs. So this is great. I'm always not so sure how to make a viable business out of this, like in the startup sense. But if it's possible, that would be awesome. Because what you see a lot is companies basically doing the part of their education that is missing in schools and afterwards as onboarding. And if you can close that gap, there's a huge demand for that.
So how far has the vision have changed since you started like 6 years ago? Like, has it been different or it's still the same?
Vision for the company?
Yes.
Oh, it's completely different. It will always evolve. I mean, some people are really set on one thing, and that can prove to be a really good thing. But it doesn't sort of take into account that you learn things along the way that reshape your vision. And I think as a startup, you need to be willing to throw some of your beliefs and concepts away when new learnings come along that disprove what you thought. So the vision for us has changed quite a lot. But yeah, so I guess the vision we got into Cebu because we had businesses that were very focused on making money, and now we started 2 local startups that are a lot more socially focused. One of which is focused on helping Filipinos own homes, and the other one is focused at helping Filipinos not get caught up by 5/6 and loan sharks. So those are 2 societal problems that I thought were really big issues in society. It keeps the poor people poor and the rich rich, or richer. So basically, we got a bit more socially inclined as we made more money. No, it's true.
Yay! I understand in Page Park is already like doing social entrepreneurship. So what has changed like since you started in Page Park?
One definition of startup is a business that is in search of its business model, no? And this is exactly what happened to us. We started out completely focused only on NGOs and selling to NGOs. And then at some point you realize that the NGO business cycle or sales cycle from actually starting, saying hello, to wow, this is a great product, we should use it. And for next year we have a project and a budget where we could put you in, where you may be useful. This is then 1.5 years away. And this is really hard to do a startup with this sales cycle. So this is something that we realized, okay, we can fill the NGO pipeline, make this one big, and at the same time we do need focus a lot more on business, and that just can be fast. And this is something that we learned and that we had to change.
So some businesses for that find Trojan horses in like markets that are really slow to approve. One of our investors is called Lendo. They do like social credit scoring, basically, for lack of centralized credit scoring in the Philippines. And they used us basically as their Trojan horse because they go through the risk department, which has these approval times that, with banks that have these approval times that are like 1.5 years, in 2 years, and I mean, it's super long and so much bureaucracy. On the marketing side of it, because we do leads for them, etc. What we did is we sold scored leads to the banks, so it's sort of like the Trojan horse for Lendo. So a lot of these companies that have these longer sales cycles, they find these sort of like Trojan horses, I guess, by lack of anything better. But yeah.
Okay, now we're opening the floor for question and answers. So if you have questions for JP and for Murat, you can like just raise your hand and we will be entertaining your questions.
Well, Paula asked you guys like if it was challenging to build a team in Cebu, and so what kind of could you fine grain more what kind of challenges you have, like what skills people lack, or is there it's just not there's not a good platform to find people? I mean, what is really the problem that you guys have? Not only technical point of view, any kind of position.
Sure. One general problem that maybe, or one difference that I wasn't accustomed to coming from Germany is that nobody complains. So if you want to improve something, you want to make something better, and it's really hard to get that out of people, that they tell you this is not working, this is what you're not doing right. This is something that simply grows over time, I guess, and this is what I meant by growing a confident team. The other one is simply in this huge pool of people that can be there and that you can get, is finding really the few that are actually a really good fit and that you can grow quickly into the role where they need to be. And there is a lot of, I guess, I don't know, just coaching or involved where you yourself need to do that and invest that time.
You need to invest once you hire them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you need to invest time before you hire them. So it's difficult to get rid of people. So I think one of our learnings was that we would put job openings and we would wait for people to come. And then you don't get the highest quality applicants, because highest quality applicants, they're not looking for jobs. You kind of have to lure them to your company, attract them. So that's been one of our biggest learnings. The quality that we got on job sites was never that great. So sending hey messages and making friends on LinkedIn, or for recruiters to come to events like this, because then you get really sort of like-minded people that go out of their way for tech talks while other people are watching TV or whatever. So to kind of try to go a different angle than what everybody else is doing for recruitment. And also we started giving the first month that people work with us, it's on contract. It's not even like a probation. It's like a contract prior to us giving them a job offer. That was a big learning, because then the 1 month contract finishes, and then after that you're done. So it's like a really long interview.
Yeah.
Because again, getting rid of people, and then we had or we still have a very good lawyer, but Dole and that kind of stuff. I mean, we didn't have those problems, but I hear a lot of people do, and there's a lot of horror stories that come from it. So, and then you're not on the driver's seat, usually. So you avoid that problem by just doing these little things. But the rest is just normal hiring. I mean, it's tough anyways.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes.
So when you say you get a lot of opportunities along the way when you have a company. When do you know when to let go of one specific project and when to start another one, and how do you justify the focus on a specific project?
That's my girlfriend, by the way. So this is like this is a very targeted question.
Getting back at you.
No kidding. That's funny. I don't think you ever do. There's sort of a cognitive bias that if you've invested something into a company, then like it's worth that because you've put that into it. And sometimes because of that, you don't let go as quickly. So sort of detaching yourself from that cognitive bias is really hard. I guess another mind hack that I look at it is if I were to invest in this company right now and it wasn't mine, how much would I pay for it? And if it'd be like, I wouldn't fucking buy that, like I wouldn't buy this company, then basically you have your answer.
That goes also for employees, I guess.
Yeah, it's more like to detach because there's like the whole load that goes like this person has been with us for so long, their family, they come to the Christmas party, they cry in my office because it's not going well at home, something. But if you have too much of that, then it could take down your company. So I guess you need these kinds of more objective ways to look at things. So being more objective, and then if you bite off more than you can chew, you split off resources a little bit too thin, and then the focus, etc. So yeah, distancing yourself from it and then reevaluate.
One thing actually can help is setting up system for this one, just to trigger this process. Basically say, this idea is a project that has 3 months lifetime, 6 month lifetime, and then I'm going to look at this point in time, and it's either very clear yes or it's a no.
That's much easier said than done.
I know. That's why I'm saying it.
Yeah.
That's your girlfriend.
And
So for you both coming from different countries, what do you think is the importance of adapting to the culture that you're coming in terms of the working style and management style? Compare like or do
Good questions. You want to do this? I can go. Yeah, so it's kind of like a trade-off, right? Because some people come and they just complain all the time when they're here. A lot of business people come and like all you hear from them is how much they dislike the way Filipinos work and stuff. And there's a lot of people like this. We've all met them. So if you're too much of like I want it to be like the U.S. or I want it to be like Canada or whatever, you're gonna be disappointed. But if you do it too much Filipino, in my perspective, then you're gonna be potentially disappointed too. So it's a kind of like a trade-off. You need to be very culturally sensitive, but you also need to bring what you feel are the good parts of your working culture and try to find the right balance.
And usually it's about setting clear expectations. If people know why you want something, even if it's something crazy German like being very punctual, then they can still understand where I'm coming from and why I want it, why it would be a good idea, because it's stuff. And in the end, people agree, and at the same time, I need to understand where they're coming from, and that needs to work through the cultural sensitivity.
Thank you. If I just add something good, what do you find that's different in the Philippines that you enjoy most here in terms of culturally? What are the things that stand out that isn't in a positive side in other countries that you're from?
So like the team really feels like a family, and I think there's a lot more sort of like distance elsewhere with like work and life balance, etc. And then so like the teams are friends. They hang out together after work. They really care about the company. They go the extra mile. So I haven't built businesses elsewhere to the scale that it's at here. So I couldn't tell you the exact difference in terms of working culture. But from my friends that have businesses right now elsewhere, they have problems with these kinds of things. So that's definitely a huge plus. Like the genuineness of people here is admirable.
And the friendliness. If you find the right people actually and you build this team, then there can be a lot of crap going on that otherwise in Germany would have like in a comic a huge many bubbles with lots of swear words, and here everything is friendly and everything is this is just great.
Do you have any specific techniques that you try to like bring employees back on board when they've kind of gone astray a little? Anything that you've been successful with, or is that usually just time to part ways for you guys?
What do you mean?
So you've got an employee and you're getting some bad behavior out of them after, say, 6 months, for one reason or another. Do you have any success stories or any specific techniques that you can help bring them back?
So is this like a measured gap in performance, or is it like a feeling?
Yeah, like somebody's starting to drop. They've done well for a while and then they start to drop off.
Yeah, but what I mean is how do you gauge performance? Do you actually set up KPIs and goals for that person?
It depends on what you're talking. I mean, for me, I just had an employee that basically just Bisson for no reason that I can tell. And I'm trying to figure out
Why?
Yeah. Well, I mean, why may not be anything that has to do with me.
Well, I think what Murat said is setting clear expectations and making sure that you're quite transparent about that. So I think in companies, especially when you're an entrepreneur, you kind of assume everybody understands your vision and shares it. And I think over communicating your vision all the time to the point of ad nauseum is a good idea. Because so sometimes it's that. But yeah, setting clear KPIs is one that you can catch really quickly, because it smokes out a lot of things that might be happening. If you don't have KPIs, you just feel like the person is slacking off.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, some people work differently. Some people are like really, creative, and then they have spurts of like really good work, and then like sometimes they're just zoning out. They're still a good employee, but then you're like, oh, zoning out. The hell, watching Facebook. That's why like we don't look at any of that. We're more result oriented. So I don't know. It might be a practice to do here. So you give more freedom, which
that's kind of what I took from it too. Was better expectations set.
Yeah, and also just giving them a bit more freedom potentially.
Yeah, I think for me it went in the opposite.
Too much
Too
freedom.
much freedom.
Yeah, but I mean, it needs to be controlled freedom.
Yeah.
But I think it sort of conveys respect as well.
But it does depend on if you have, if it's like a bump in the road, then that's fine, everybody has that.
Yeah.
If it's really an attitude problem, I usually don't see people recovering that well from it. I mean, if it's a performance thing, then somebody simply doesn't know that you're expecting more or so, and it's like gradual performance that happens, then you can correct it. If it's more like life is just me and just being here, then
they're not going. Got it.
Yeah.
That answers that question.
Yeah. One thing we used to say is like we hire for attitude and we train for skill.
Yeah.
Now we hire for attitude and we hire for skill, but but yeah, it's something you can't teach.
Right.
Any other questions?
So, would you guys still do your next business here in Cebu? If, like, obviously not local business, but if you have to do it again, would you do it again?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it has everything going for itself. It depends which stage you are in life, and then what kind of family obligations and pressures are on you.
No, I mean, if you have complete.
But that all that put aside, yeah, it's a great time to do it. I mean, the Philippines is amazing right now to do it. So there's good talent. There's a growing tech community. There's a lot of problems to fix. I used to say like in Canada you have 20 entrepreneurs for every opportunity, and here you got 20 opportunities for every entrepreneur. It's kind of a cool place to be right now.
If you don't have the hiring problem, then you could even think about going a bit more even abroad, not abroad, more inwards the country, because the infrastructure is getting better internet-wise. So you actually could have the opportunity to think about not doing it in Cebu, as 5 years or 3 years ago it was a good thing.
Yeah.
So this is actually a real nice opportunity to maybe look inside.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it in Manila.
So we have another question.
So, I'm curious to know, like, what you guys think the startup community will add or take away from the local Cebuano community, or even just the Philippines in general. Like, do you think what are the advantages to having such a large amount of foreign influence, foreign startups, and what kind of disadvantages do you see it having on the local economy versus like the advantages that it would have?
I think it democratizes the wealth a little bit more, because historically the people that would dare to have businesses were sort of the wealthy families here and their heirs. And now, because a lot more people are coming here from whatever backgrounds and setting things up, it's showing people that it's possible to do it from whichever walk of life you're from. And I think sometimes it's just about having those examples to look at, because people sort of when they read about things, Silicon Valley, whatever, is quite far. But if they see success in their entourage, it gives them the perspective and the vision to dream a little bit bigger. So I think that's definitely a big plus. In terms of disadvantages, I mean, there's just more people competing for staff, so makes it more expensive. So hence, you can't bootstrap the same way as probably you used to before. But that's happening anyways, because I mean, even freelance websites are your competitors. So it's irrelevant the number of people locally doing it. I think it's only gonna get better. So more community, showing more people that it's possible, knowledge transfer, etc., etc. So the wheel spins a little bit faster.
I actually think it's super important to have this community you grow, this entrepreneurship community, for two reasons. One is the brain drain abroad. The more this year grows, the more people just think, hey, why do I need to leave? Besides, I love it here, I live here, this is my home. But they can stay here and have a good and great job. And the other one, of course, is if the more locals decide to start a business and give opportunity to local people here, the less foreign influence is there, or is a fact, is a factor. Another one is historically, the places that thrived in the world were usually the free places where lots of people just met, where the good people met. So foreign influence, sure, but when you want a thriving place, then it just needs a lot of smart people that come and go, and just interested people, curious people, and this is all in favor of an entrepreneurship hub. And so I think this is a really good thing, and I do think it will spread a bit, sure, but in the long run, you still have, there's 7,000 islands, so I'm pretty sure that the local culture will stay intact.
Some pretty good questions, by the way, guys.
Yeah. Any other questions that you have there? Okay, so that about wraps everything for the Q&A. So I would like to thank Google for Entrepreneurs and A-Space for having us here. And we will be having more of the startup grind. So we're happy to have a lot of people here. And we were quite surprised. Although the rain was like pouring, so it didn't stop everyone. So now we can like chill, have more beer, and meet the people. And if you have other questions, you can talk to them and personally approach them.
I have one thing to add. So, if you guys need some swag done for your startup, talk to him. He runs a company called Uniform Solutions, and then he does short orders for startups. So if you guys need just a couple of shirts done for your startup or your company, talk to that guy. All right? Yeah. Yeah, sure. Cool.
Guys.